Moral of the story is stop putting celebrities that are too noticeable in biopics. Hey guys, it's your girl Deborah. Welcome back to my channel. Okay, so let's get into it because I don't even have time for a long intro. Right, Sydney Sweeney. So, if your For You page has been like my For You page, you've seen the shit show that is the Sydney Sweeney press tour in anything right now. Girlie has not been doing well in PR, like at all. And it's very clear that her brand is very male centered. A lot of the ads, a lot of the sponsorships that she does, besides La Neige or the skincare cream, has been very male centered, including the bathwater. And then she had that horrible ad for the jeans. Child. Then she got accused of white supremacy. And then Girlie did not respond to that. Now, the reason that we are gathered here today, ladies and gentlemen, is to see whether the Christy movie was truly a flop because it's just a bad movie, or it's a flop because Sydney Sweeney was in it and now everyone's just dogpiling, right? Actually, it's quite funny because I actually have a very soft spot for women in wrestling. Me and my dad used to watch WWE when I was growing up as a kid, and I know boxing is not the same thing as wrestling. Don't come for me. Okay, but one of my favorite WWE wrestlers of all time is Chyna. Like, seeing a tall, muscular woman just fucking dominate and look good and be one of the first few women to pioneer in anything in wrestling or in that kind of world was just so iconic to me as a child. And so this movie was supposed to be something that is actually something that I would have watched. It's just really sad that like it gets overshadowed by all this bullshit. Okay, but let's get into the film. The first half of the film is not good. I have notes about this. I have extensive notes about this actually. I wanted to give this movie a chance, not because of Sydney Sweeney, but because there is a woman's trauma being shown to us on video and it's not being talked about. Okay, problem is that the first half of this film throws you into, like, the first scene is Christy boxing somebody else. But the thing is, if you don't know anything about Christy, which I think like a lot of people don't really know about Christy's story, if you're not into the whole wrestling world, right? If you don't know anything about this film, it's gonna be super jarring. Okay, because when you walk in, the beginning scenes is Christy fighting another girl. You don't know where she is. Next thing we know, it's 1989, and they show us Christy's home. Okay, that she's living in, I think, West Virginia at this point, right? The first thing that kind of throws me off is Sydney's accent. I'm so sorry. I love me a Southern accent. Okay, there's a reason why I love Blanche from Golden Girls, all right? Sydney's accent is not consistent throughout this film. It's not consistent. And there's moments where you hear that accent like changing. When she picks up the phone or when she's talking to another character and it's been a while, you can see that she has to like get into it. And one of the biggest signs that you can see that this accent is not natural to her is when she has to say the word fucking. Like when she has to cuss, she's like, like she uses a huge emphasis on the F, where I really feel like that's not necessary. It doesn't sound natural to her. And you can see that she's really trying to remember to put on the accent. But there's moments where it does slip and she does forget. Okay, so that's kind of the things that takes you out of the movie. Second of all, the first few scenes in the film, it takes me, like, I have my notes here. I didn't feel like I was looking at Christy. I felt like I was looking at Sydney Sweeney, which is not a good thing if you're trying to portray somebody else's life. If this was a fictional character, then that's different. But this is a real person. I should be focusing on the real person that was Christy, or that is Christy because she's still alive. But I instead am blinded by Sydney. Okay, it doesn't matter how much of a transformation she goes through. Sydney has a very distinctive face, and she also has very distinctive eyes, and her eyes do not show that much emotion. Sometimes when she's acting, like sometimes in this movie, there's times in the movie where her face is acting, but there's no emotion on it, so it just kind of feels very stiff. And her cheeks, like I also have round cheeks, right? But her cheeks are not moving as efficiently. Like I don't know what it is specifically. I'm not like a face analyst, but there's a disconnect between the emotion in her inflection and tone and her face. And it kind of throws you off. And at the beginning, I really did not believe that this was Christy. Like, it took me a while to get invested in this. And actually, in the first few 20 minutes, I wanted to shut off the film. I had to remind myself that the reason I'm watching this is for another woman's story, not because of Sydney Sweeney, which is insane. And that's not a good sign. We go through Christy's story, that she's with a girl called Rosie, and her parents definitely do disagree. Again, it's not like I need a film to explain this to me, but it's not explained well. There needed to be a lot more dialogue about other things than what was in the actual film. Like, for example, Christy is sitting down at the table and they're talking about Rosie, so you can get that like the family does not think that, Christy being a lesbian is okay and they're super against it, right? She's sitting at the table and you're not really understanding like who Rosie is to her. There's no like flashbacks of a backstory of how long they've been dating. You just see them like talk about this and her family in her family dinner table, and then you see them making out at a certain point. But again, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, okay, but it does not feel natural to Sydney. It doesn't. It's like when they're together and there's intimate moments between her and Rosie and like they're trying to be sexual, it doesn't feel as natural. I'm sorry. I don't know how to say that better. I don't know. And I don't want to police anyone portraying sexuality, but girl, it does not feel like you are a lesbian. I don't know how to say it better. Like, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel natural. I don't know if I'm gonna get canceled for saying that. I'm so sorry. Anyways, there's a certain sort of je ne sais quoi you have to have if you're going to be somewhat intimate with another person on television, on a movie, and it's just not here. It's not here. There's no like sexual chemistry between the both of them. Not that that's the important part of the story, you know what I mean? But I needed a little something. So that scene kind of fell flat for me. But there's other strong points in this film. It's just unfortunate that it's not consistently a strong point. Okay. After one of her fights, she gets called by this guy to, I forgot the guy's name, and they see something in her. And again, it's a huge deal that she's a woman. Of course, in this training center, she meets Jim, who would unfortunately become her abusive piece of shit, crap, garbage husband. Ew. And he like practically ignores her at the beginning. Like she has to get his attention. And then he's very much like, oh, okay. Like this girl actually has talent, right? And this is where the movie starts to get more interesting, okay? Because Christy's girlfriend does break up with her. Then she crashes out and starts beating people more. And she starts fighting better. And she really puts the anger into the ring, right? She starts winning matches. Jim is going to be her trainer. He's going to be the person by her side. And he sees that she's really got something. She wins another match. And eventually she makes out with him, which feels very self-destructive on her part. And there's a lot of like layers to it that I myself cannot possibly do justice in explaining, but you can see that like her parents want her to clearly get with a man. Everyone's expecting her to get with a man. Jim also makes comments about how like she looks quite butch. I don't want to say the D word, okay? And Jim you can see, is molding her by putting her in pink, by putting her in these girly colors and telling her to grow out her hair and telling her not to eat a pie because she's gonna get fat. Disgusting. But you can see that Jim is molding her, and it's so unfortunate because people in her life do not believe in her as much as she needed them to. And Jim sees this, that she doesn't have a good support system, and he takes advantage of that. And it's very important as well to note that despite Christy being one of the strongest women who can fight, she's still being abused, physically abused by a man. The parts where I felt that the movie really had strong points was when it explores the sexuality of Christy and how, like, because she is forced to get with a man and she wants to make her parents happy, she does sleep with Jim, like they have a sexual relationship, and she is not okay. I think those scenes are really her strongest. I think those scenes really show the most emotion. But unfortunately, in this movie, the movie has to get to a certain point where there's so much trauma that you just accept that Sydney's acting. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Like the strongest parts in this movie that kept me in here was when the drama and when the trauma started happening. And I was like, oh shit, this is serious. And my brain kind of did something where it was like, okay, we don't really accept Sydney as this character, but we're gonna keep on watching because this story is so intriguing, it's so powerful. But the whole time, Sydney never convinced me that she was Christy. And I don't know how to say that. And it's not like acting is necessarily the easiest thing in the world. It's not easy to make yourself a blank slate and to get into character. And I cannot imagine also having to train so hard, gaining the weight, gaining the muscle. And it's so unfortunate because I cannot believe that she's Christy. I don't know what it is. I don't know what's wrong, but it's just not happening in my brain, and it's not selling in for me. But anyways, I kept on watching the movie. It's important to note that during different times of the relationship, Jim says to Christy that he would kill her if she ever leaves him, which would come back a little bit later. But whatever. Okay, so the two have a very off relationship, and then he also doesn't want her to get a job. He wants her to focus on training because she is his guinea pig to make money. She's like, no, you're supposed to get a job. You're a man. Aren't you supposed to get a job? You can see the seeds of physical abuse start when he starts intimidating her to her face. I liked how the movie did allude to that. I liked how the movie did some things. I liked how the movie alluded to that because it was really powerful. And there were some moments where I had to skip because it was just a lot. Whoever played Jim played the character really, really well. We see that Jim is also making Christy record these weirdo ass videotapes, whether in a sexual nature, which will come later, but also at the beginning, he was also selling her out to other men to fight them in a sexual nature so he can earn money, which is such a weird thing and disgusting thing to do, and such a violation of your partner's body integrity and everything. But anyway, Jim and Christy eventually meet Don King, and Don King gives him a contract, which is a bit exploitative because he doesn't pay them as much. Christy becomes famous, and she becomes famous, but she also is very anti-feminist, anti-woman, just anti-lesbians because, you know, she's in the closet. The story for that part of the film becomes quite bearable to watch. I will say that. Like, I was fairly like, okay, this is going finally at the right pace. Interesting, but again, Sydney's acting, especially taking on the character of the coal miner's daughter, of this tough, brooding thing. I cannot believe that Sydney is playing a coal miner's daughter. I hope that makes sense. And I don't know if that's a bias of any sort of kind. I feel like when I looked at the real photos of Christy, I was like, that's a coal miner's daughter, right? That's somebody who's grown up tough in West Virginia. Sydney, I don't get that. So it doesn't translate well onto the face, but she tries her best. It's just, it feels very forced at a lot of the times when she has to be bold and brave, but whatever. So her and Jim, she becomes famous, and then she wins, like, you know, the golden match where her nose bleeds, and she goes against Deidre, I think, and that like puts her on the map, right? Eventually, years later, she has to face Nadia Ali, and we can see that it's a serious match, but also the relationship that she's had with this abusive piece of shit husband for the last 14 years has really been just horrible, and it's been taking a toll on her. And but Jim doesn't give a fuck because he's still gonna push her because she is his money-making machine. And I would say that towards the ending of this film, where things start to unravel, it is truly the best acting in the film because it's so intense. But again, there's certain scenes where it just doesn't translate right. After the fight with Nadia Ali, Christy, like, you know, she doesn't win, and Nadia beats her, and it's really like a catharsis for her because they just spiral into drugs, taking coke, and then Jim also keeps her on coke as well, keeps Christy on coke, and you can see that she wants to get back in the ring, but she's been defeated, and, like, you know, it's just been a whole thing. After months and months and months and months and years and years and years of abuse, all the way to 2010, eventually she decides to leave. I also forgot to mention that she meets, or I guess rekindles, a friendship with older, like a old competitor that she also beat in the ring years ago, and that competitor comes back to help her train for Nadia Ali, and the competitor tells her, like, babe, like, my light just died. But she tells her, babe, like, you don't have to be this tough person all the time. Like, I was just genuinely wishing you luck. I wasn't trying to get in your face or anything. You don't have to be an asshole. You don't have to be horrible. You don't have to do this. I don't know if your husband's telling you to do this, but you was. And it's just really sad that you see how much that man molded her, unfortunately. And she says that at the end of the film, like, she didn't know who she was. She didn't know what she was meant to do. She didn't know anything because everything was around that piece of garbage shit, Jim. As Christy is finally getting the courage to leave, she rekindles also her previous friendship or previous relationship with her ex, and her ex notices that she's being abused, so her ex tries to help her, but Christy, of course, being in this line in the cycle, tries to be brave, tries to go back home, and Jim not only shoots her, but stabs her almost to death. Insane. And that, I think, was the most powerful part of the movie. Like, that was the part where I was like, okay, I'm about to shed a tear because this is a really, really insane story. I will say Sydney's acting was better there for sure, but there was a scene towards the end where Jim finally gets arrested, and Sydney has to sit there and she's giving the speech against Jim in court. Number one, the first thing I noticed is the accent is going really hard when she's cussing, and it doesn't feel natural to her.
This is confrontational.
Are you fucking kidding me? I'm confrontational?
Sustained.
And number two, the face acting is a little bit off. Overall, this movie really could have been something. I really felt like they should have replaced whoever this was with a Ruby Rose, with anybody who is either queer or who knows how to portray, who is a blank slate enough to portray somebody else's life, because Sydney is not it. And I just don't think that this is the right type of movie for her. Am I gonna dogpile on her, even though sometimes she does kind of deserve it? No. But I really feel like this could have been such a big movie. The direction of it and the stuff of it was a little bit off at times, and the dialogue needed work and the script needed work, especially at the beginning. But towards the end, it got really powerful. So I do feel like this could have been such a good movie, or at least like a B-rated movie. It kind of reminds me of how Will Smith did the Serena and Venus Williams biography, right? And I think he was supposed to win an award for that. But I remember when I watched some of it, I was just like, this is Will Smith. Do you know what I mean? There's very, very few celebrities who are able to really lose themselves in a character. And I remember when Beyonce, out of all people who's so distinctive, played Etta James, and that was a good one because she really became Etta, right? And then she did Dreamgirls, and you're like, okay, Dreamgirls was amazing, but that's because it was natural to Beyonce. I feel like Sydney should find something more natural to her. And Christy's story, I love Christy's story. Christy's story is so powerful, and I love and adore her. But would I watch this movie again? No. But I love Christy's story, and I'm glad this movie gave me awareness to Christy's story. Anyways, you guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I'm going to be watching The Housemaid, so I will give you thoughts on that movie coming up. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Okay, bye.